it was bath salts. We were ordering like a kilo of bath salts for like $1,000 and selling it for, close to 80. Yeah, my name is TJ. I'm 30 years old. I'm from Rochester, New York. I grew up on the west side of Rochester, New York. I went to city schools. From an early age, I always thought I was different. I always felt different. I had an older brother, older sister. They always got along and did things. And like I felt excluded because they never asked me to do anything with them. And because of that, like I had like crippling anxiety and depression at a very young age, to the point where I was suicidal as a kid. No 10, 11-year-old kids should have suicidal idealizations, and that was almost regular for me. And I remember when I was in 8th grade in high school, and I got called down to a guidance counselor's office, and my mom and dad were sitting there, and I was like wondering what they were doing there, because during the week, and they were doing laundry, and they found a suicide note that I wrote. And they were like really worried about me, and like I was just so reclusive that I didn't want to talk about it. That depression and that anxiety like almost forced me from opening up about what I was feeling. And soon after that, I got involved with a friend of mine that I had for about 14 years. And, his house was like that party house that we could go to on the weekends and smoke weed and drink. And, eventually like that led into like, mushroom and LSD and a couple other substances. And, he was like the wild child. He was like the wild kid. And like I was heavily influenced as a child because like I didn't feel a part of. And like going over to his house, like I felt a part of. And like I felt like I was easily peer pressured into doing things that I wouldn't normally have done. And, that led to like breaking into cars and stealing stuff out of cars. And, I remember 16 years old, I broke into a car one night and I found a book bag and there was a bunch of cocaine and, marijuana and a bunch of money and other stuff in there. And that was my first experience with a hard drug at 16 years old, was cocaine. And, I remember telling myself, I literally do remember telling myself I shouldn't do that again because like that's gonna be a problem. And
you knew right away.
yeah, it was everything and then some. And I listened to myself for as long as I could. And high school, I went to a city school, so I didn't really fit in at all, and I ended up skipping a bunch of school and, just going to smoke pot and, get some 40s when I could, but it was mainly marijuana. And because of, my drinking and drugging at that age, I started my senior year as a sophomore, and like I knew that I had to do something because I didn't want to keep going to school, so I forced myself to like stay after school, and I ended up graduating on time, thank God. But instead of going to college, like I got involved with that friend of mine and a group of our friends, and it was parties every weekend, which eventually turned into almost every day. And something that I noticed was the selling drugs was getting all the attention at the party, and like I wanted that. I always lacked that feeling the need and the want from other people, and because of that, I got involved with selling drugs. And eventually it got to a point where like my phone wouldn't stop blowing up, and like I was like just all day, every day, I was just meeting people and serving them and then going to parties at night. And I would walk into like party after party and like everybody would scream my name, and it was like everything that I thought I wanted in life. And so that friend circle of mine was a part of a big ring in Rochester in the early 2010s, the teens, I should say. And they were ordering, methadone and other, research chemicals off the dark web. And, we were ordering like a kilo of like this it was bath salts. We were ordering like a kilo of bath salts for like $1,000 and selling it for, close to 80. And it was just party after party after party. And, eventually, taking stimulants like that, you're up for days, and you know what creeps in with that is like a bunch of paranoia and anxiety, and just it was just a revolving circle. And during that time, like, I met this girl. She was, you know, an IV user. She was using heroin. She was selling herself on Backpage, and I thought it was a match made in heaven. And you know, after, you know, doing some work, I realized that it was just a drug-fueled relationship. That's all it was. You know, and I remember, like, watching her, like, use IV, you know, drugs, and telling myself, like, I would never use, you know, a needle, or I would never use heroin. And, like, heroin was, like, the big thing for me. Like, it was never, you know, I remember, like, being very adamant about never wanting to do heroin, because, like, even then, like, you know, we were losing friends every now and then, not as much as, like, with fentanyl these days. But, you know, you hang around a barbershop long enough, you get a haircut. You know, I would watch her, like, use these IV substances, and, like, the thought just crossed my mind one day, like, I wonder what that feels like. And, like, I just grabbed, like, a tie off, and I tied off my arm, and I just started, like, poking veins in my arm with my finger. And, like, she looked at me and she's like, what the hell are you doing? And I was like, either you're gonna do it for me, or I'm gonna do it and I'm gonna hurt myself. And she did it, and it was off to the races from there. You know, from that point going forward, any substance that I put in my body was through IV.
It's crazy how we manipulate the people around us to, you're gonna do it for me, or I'm gonna hurt myself doing it. So either way, you don't have an option.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, point blank. Like, and you know, I had a general understanding of how to do it after watching her for so long, you know what I mean? It was just, I didn't know where veins were, really, you know what I mean? That's what took me the longest, was to find, you know, decent veins to use. And
it's wild too. You guys were ordering your stuff from the dark web, which
yeah,
is all big.
Yeah, man. At one point, we were using Bitcoin, and it was $1.16 a piece per Bitcoin. As a matter of fact, probably a year ago, I was talking to one of those old friends of mine. You know, he's sober now, and he lives in North Carolina, and you know, we just got to talking about like cryptocurrencies and everything like that. And he sent me a screenshot. At one point, we had 6,400 and something Bitcoins in a wallet. And put that into perspective, they're like $38,000 a piece right now.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And you guys were using it
to order substances on the dark web. Everything from research chemicals to cocaine to, you know, LSD to, you know, I don't want to like incriminate myself, but we were using, you know, fuck it, statute of limitations. Sorry for the cursing. You know, at one point, like, we were using the research chemical Molly that we were buying, and we wanted to start pressing like ecstasy tablets, and like we tried to figure out how to like buy a pill press, because like they're very hard to buy, let's put it that way. And even on the dark web, they're like very hard to buy. So we found the solution to that, and we would buy people's credit card information and their identity off the dark web, and then we would use that to order a piece of a pill press. And once we had enough, we bought all the pieces to the pill press. We put it together, and we started buying alprazolam powder. We started buying MDMA online, and we were making ecstasy and Xanax and all these other things. And yeah, intense, bro. Yeah, intense.
What was your changing moment, your bottom, so to speak? So,
you know, after years of doing that, there a lot of things started to happen. You know, my drug addiction started to progress, obviously, like to a point where, you know, I couldn't keep the money flowing fast enough, because that's how fast I was using everything. You know, you talk about, on average, probably making $160,000 a year off of narcotics, profit-wise, and that's still not enough. And you know, what had happened was, you know, those two friends of mine that were, you know, part of, you know, my circle, while I was down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, because that was my first treatment center that I went to, I realized that, you know, something needed to change. And like I hit a point where I wanted to stop using, but I didn't know how to stop using. And I reached out to my mom, you know, who I hadn't talked to in like years. And she was hesitant on it, but she helped me get into treatment. And she wanted me to go to a treatment center here, but I thought, you know, because I sold drugs to everybody, you know, I couldn't get clean around the people that I associated with. But what I didn't know was wherever I go, I bring me with me. And so I basically conned her into a treatment center in Florida that, you know, my insurance at the time covered. And while I was down there, you know, some things happened back here. You know, I was down there for like 4 months, and when I came back, I had found out that the DEA and Homeland Security came in and like swooped up, you know, those two friends of mine. And, you know, that put a lot of like scare into me, because like you know, obviously like they got hit with like importing charges and, you know, importing controlled substances into the United States charges, and like that's like federal offenses. And
it's no joke. They're like borders terrorism charges, because they'll think if you're importing.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it was intense. And like they were facing like 20 years apiece. But you know, getting sober and getting clean, you go through the 12 steps. You know, there's multiple pathways to recovery, and my journey was, you know, 12-step fellowships. And in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it talks about, you know, one of the only ways that we can get clean and sober is, you know, having these vital spiritual experiences in life. And you know, I can contribute that to being like one of the first spiritual experiences I had in life. And you know, when I came home from the treatment center, I got involved with the same friends, and within a week of being home, I was right back to where I was, getting high. And you know, that girlfriend of mine, you know, I rekindled the relationship with her, and, you know, we were getting high together, and she was bugging me to go get her some dope, so I did. And when I came back, I gave it to her, and I had to go meet some friends, and it ended up taking a bit longer than what I thought it would have taken. When I eventually got back home, I found her dead. She had overdosed. That was when fentanyl first started coming around. And, you know, back then, when fentanyl first started coming around, you know, it was a lot stronger than dope. You know, obviously fentanyl is a lot stronger than dope, but I feel even towards the end of my using, you know, because fentanyl was like rampant, like that's all you could get. But I still feel that the fentanyl that was around when it first came around was like crazy.
I think more too is they didn't know what they were doing or how to mix it, so they're just pure bags of fentanyl.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, like I remember I had this one dealer that I was like faithful to, and you know, he had just gotten some, you know, some stuff, you know, obviously like we nobody really knew of fentanyl back then. You know, we had heard about it, but like he told me, you know, be careful with this shit, man, do like a half a bag. And I was like, nah, like I was doing like 4 or 5 bags at a time, and like I was like, nah. So I ended up trying 3 bags, and that was my first overdose. You know, I wish I could say that was my last experience overdosing, but it wasn't. You know, I've had one more after that, and there's such a stigma to us addicts, and it's unfortunate because, you know, we're not bad people, we're just sick people. You know, you find more people who are more compassionate, and, you know, the people who understand. And, you know, I think what it comes down to is people are starting to break barriers in life, and they're starting to, you know, speak up on this thing, because I can honestly sit here and say that out of everybody that I know that's not an addict, they've experienced somebody in their life who is addicted to something, whether it's alcohol or gambling or, you know, sex or money or, you know, whatever it is. You know what I mean? And that's what the disease of addiction is. It just manifests in different ways in different people. Yeah.
What do you do today? Tell us how it came full circle, your job and what you do. Yeah, so today in life, I, you know, 3.5 years ago, so let me back up a little bit. You know, ultimately what led me to get sober was
my father was diagnosed with cancer in 2017, and he fought, you know what I mean? He fought for as long as he could, and unfortunately in 2018 he lost his battle. And he was like my best friend. Both my parents were like my best friends. No matter what I put them through, they supported me through thick and thin, and they never judged me, and they never gave up on me. And in life I had to start experiencing some things that I never thought I would do. And after my father passed away, like, I started robbing my family, and I robbed all my father's jewelry that he had, and I pawned it all. And like, anything of value that wasn't bolted to the ground, and even if it was bolted to the ground, like, I would have found a way. And so to this day, my mom only has like 1 or 2 things left of my father because of me. And on Christmas Day of 2018, I went through her purse and I stole her credit card, and I did some things with it that I shouldn't have done. And ultimately that's what led my mom to hitting her bottom with me, which inevitably made me hit my bottom. She called me to come over to her house and to bring whatever I had left of my dad's or hers. And like the addict that I thought I was, I went over there to try and manipulate her out of something. And when I walked into her house, not even 5 minutes later, I was in handcuffs by the Irondequoit Police Department. And she pressed charges on me, and I was facing 3 to 6 years in prison for stolen credit cards and forgery, essentially. Well, not essentially, that's what I was facing, was credit card theft. And that's ultimately what led me down this journey. I remember being in that reception cell, and it's not fun detoxing in jail. I was covered in my own vomit, my own feces, and something inside of me, I remember it so vividly. Just, I had this overwhelming feeling of something, and I remember just looking up to the ceiling and just saying, God, either give me a fighting chance at this thing, or please just let me die, because I cannot keep going this way. And I woke up the next morning, and like, the obsession was gone. Like, the overwhelming feeling of wanting to get high, or even just the pain that I had caused myself wasn't there. And that was a higher power in my life. And I grabbed that feeling and I just ran with it. And I went to I was placed in drug court in Monroe County, and then I had to wait bed to bed to go to the Nielsen house, which is a halfway house or transitional home here in Rochester. And like, I remember walking into that house, and like, I was so full of fear because I didn't know what to expect. And there was a couple of staff members there at the time, John Olson, Luther, Wenzel was there. And I just remember Luther looking at me and just saying, welcome home. And like, those simple words just resonated with me, because I've never experienced that form of love from somebody. And like, you could sense that he meant it. And because of that, and because of a lot of hard work, I was able to build a foundation. And in that foundation, it was through a 12-step program. And I got busy. I went into an outpatient program, which was Huther Doyle. I had already been a client there for a few years in the past, and I tried to play games with them, and I tried to manipulate them, and I bringing in fake urine to pass drug tests, and just to get Suboxone to sell it for dope, and like, all these just the things we do as addicts. And so I went back to their program, and in Monroe County Jail, when I was there, they were just starting a MAT program, which is a medicated assisted treatment program. And I was actually the first client in that program. And through Monroe County, I was receiving Suboxone, as well as like outpatient therapy and a bunch of other different programs in the jail. And when I left, they had me linked up with my old provider at Huther Doyle. And, that was where, my journey began this time, along with like 12-step fellowships. I got busy, I got a sponsor. I started working on myself. And, you know, there was a few times where, you know, I wanted to give up, but like I had to like really remember like where I was in life. And, you know, I eventually went through drug court with no missed appointments, no failed screens, no nothing. And apparently there's like 6% of like people who go through drug court with nothing like on their belt. And you know, I attribute that because like I made a decision on December 29th of 2018 that I was done, and I wholeheartedly believed in it. And I believed in myself, and I believed that I could stay sober no matter what life has thrown at me. And life has been difficult. It has. Like, it hasn't been a walk in the park. But I wouldn't give what I have today up for nothing. Nothing. So I had the opportunity to be of service to a treatment center that I was a client at for 6 or 7 years, and they've seen me at the lowest point in my life, and they've seen me at the highest point in my life. And you know, finally I ended up graduating from their program about 5 months ago, and they asked me if I'd be willing to come back and, you know, do a documentary on my story and, you know, my progression through their program, and they're going to share it at their annual fundraiser. And the CEO was present when I did it, and you know, I got a phone call on Tuesday, which was a couple of days ago, and she said to me that she was so moved by it that she went to the board of directors and brought it to them, and they want me as a member of their board of directors. They actually offered me a spot on it. And you know, three and a half years ago, I was living on Hudson Avenue, you know, with a needle in my arm every hour, literally. You know, stealing from my family, stealing from, you know, loved ones, and like one day at a time, I'm going to be a member of a board of directors for one of the biggest treatment centers in Rochester, New York, and that's just wild.
That is incredible. Wild. That's so full circle too. 3.5 years ago, you're living on the street, then you go there as a patient, voluntarily stay longer,
yeah,
and now you're going to be on the board of directors.
Yeah.
Wow, that is so cool, bro.
It's I still haven't fully processed it.
Wow. Any last question? What would you say to somebody out there who is struggling?
Man, you know, I hear this question all the time, and you know, I look back at myself, and you know, the best advice that I could give somebody struggling is some advice that was given to me a long time ago, and it's really just give myself the chance. You know what I mean? You'll be surprised what you're capable of. You know, there's so many resources. We are so incredibly blessed here in Rochester for the not just 12-step programs, but community, you know, outreach programs, and like the resources that we have, and you know, the many different treatment centers, and you know, we have so much here. And you know, I just wish I would have given myself a chance a long time ago, because you know, I didn't know I was capable of what I'm doing in life today. You know, and really what it came down to was just getting honest with myself, and you know, asking for help. You know, it doesn't make you any less of a man or any less of a woman to say you can't do this on your own, because really you can't. You know, you got to ask for help.
Awesome. Thank you so much, TJ.
Yeah, of course.